Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to XCM Advanced Utilities Best Practice. My name is Michelle Ake, and I'm a Client Service Manager here at XCM. This training today will provide an overview of the firm-wide utility section in XCM. The utilities being discussed today are very heavily user right driven. So if I'm showing something and you don't see that in your utility section, it's because you don't have that user right, and you'll want to reach out to your web admin or firm administrator to request those user rights if you believe you need them. Also, today's best practice is being recorded and will be sent out through our GoToMeeting link tomorrow, usually around this time. It takes about an 24-hour turnaround for that to pop out. So that will be available to you. You'll be able to share that with anyone you'd like. Also, I do have the questions box open, so as we go through today, we have a lot to cover, but you can put some questions in the questions box. I have saved some room at the end. If I can hit the questions as we're moving through, I will do that, but I will definitely circle back and get to those questions at the end. If you have any concerns with the view you're seeing, which should be my My View page right now, or your audio, please let me know. I am working from home. I haven't had any difficulties, but if there are any problems or concerns with that, please again put that in the questions box and I'll address it as quickly as possible. So as I said, we have a lot to do today, so let's go ahead and get going. We're going to move right into the utility section. Many of you may have attended our 301 Utilities Training, which is our weekly webinar, which covers a lot of the less complicated utilities that you maybe use more often throughout, your time with XCM, the more everyday sort of things, managing users, managing your clients, looking at tasks, cleaning up your site. Today, we're going to really focus on the setup utilities, which are the things that you may only use yearly or, when something comes up, or that were used when your firm was implemented. Maybe people on the line are maybe new to this role and weren't part of the implementation and kind of wonder how these utilities work and how they can affect their day and how they can help to improve their firm. So again, we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with the manage settings and defaults. Now, part of this we do go over during the 301 training. What I want to look at today is the edit role names. So we do have the ability for you to change the role names in your routing sheet, which obviously flows out to reports and basically everything where you see those role names displayed. The default role names are the standard defaults that come with XCM. They're the first 9. We do have ability to add extra roles. The only way to add extra roles or to update the standard roles is to click on new role names. I will caution anyone who is on the line that uses CCH Practice Management integration with us. If you want to make changes to your role name, please reach out to support@xcmsolutions.com. Let us know you want to do that. We will get you in touch with your consultant. This needs to be done in a coordinated effort because of the integration and bringing staffing in from practice management. If you just come in and change the role name, that will affect the way your staff is syncing over when you make changes, and you may see things not updating as you intended. So again, please just reach out. And we can certainly make the changes. We just want to do that as a coordinated effort with your consultant. It's very easy to use this utility. Simply, if you want to keep the standard roles and add additional roles, you can simply scroll down to role number 10, give it a name, and basically that's all you need to do. Just rename or add a name to the role. If you want to change a role, clear what's in there, type in what you want it to be. Simple as that. Once you've made all of these changes, any additions or changes that you've made, you can click on Save Role Names and it will update. You'll need to just log out, log back in again so that you see these changes come into effect. I'm going to say that kind of across the board. Anytime you make changes in the utility section, best case is to log out and log back in again to make sure everything gets updated properly. There are a couple you don't need to do that, but as a best practice, it's best to just sort of log out, log back in again. This is a firm-wide setting. Everything that I'm going to talk about today is a firm-wide setting. In this case, this is for all task types, categories. It's basically across the board on the routing sheet. So if you are trying to use XCM, or if you're using XCM for multiple departments, this might be a place where you want to make names a little more generic: partner, manager, reviewer, rather than tax, audit, and those sort of things. So this, again, is across the board, not broken out by category or anything like that. Oops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to click that button. The other piece here I want to quickly touch on for those of you who are using our CCH practice management time or client integration or CCH document integration. This section will show in your manage settings and defaults, this integration setting area here. There are 3 settings here for practice management. If you are if you want to only allow things to flow through from practice management, such as new clients, and you don't want them to be updated or touched in XCM, a new client to the system, you want to check this box here. That will lock down the managed client. It will not allow anyone to add a new client directly in XCM. It will have to be brought in from practice management. If you check off this box, any of your mapped roles or mapped fields, names, email addresses, routing, staffing, anything that's mapped for your firm, if you check this off, again, that save button will be gone in the manage client section, so no changes will be able to be made in XCM. They will have to flow through the synchronization process. The third box, all changes currently, if you make changes to mapped fields in XCM, practice management, they flow over into XCM and affect the client database only. If you want those staffing changes, email addresses and such to flow out into your routing sheet to all active tasks, you'll want to check this box off. If you don't want that to happen, keep it unchecked. It'll happen only at the database level and will only change when you're creating new tasks. It won't push out to tasks you already have created. If you're using our CCH time integration, you'll want to check this box off. That will help flow the time through from practice management into XCM, into the actual hours on your routing sheet. These 2 fields here, these 2 URL areas, there's nothing showing in ours because we don't have an actual database we're attached to. But if you are attached and you are using the integration, this will give the address to where your practice management server is located, as well as your CCH document location. When there are any changes that happen on the firm side, if you move a location of a server, you change a server, rename it, we're going to need to know that so that we can update this information so that your integration will continue to run properly. It can be done after the fact. Best case is to let us know when something is going to happen so we can do it as close to the time as it is going to happen so you don't lose any data that happens when those changes get made. Again, anytime you make changes, hit that save button and then log out and log back in again. The next utility I'd like to show you is the Manage Routing Sheet. This is an updated routing sheet area. Over the last year or so, this has been changed. Some of you may know about it, some of you may not, which is why we're going through these today. So the routing sheet can be managed by tax category. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say tax every time. By category, so your different categories, you can change the sections that you see on the routing sheet. So if we think about the tax department, many times the tax department doesn't require the engagement section maybe. And if you don't want that to show on your routing sheet, if it's not a necessary section for you and you don't use it, simply uncheck the box. It will remove it from the selected sections here on the right-hand side and click Save. If you click Save, your update will apply only to the tax category. If your change applies across the board, you can click Save to all categories and that change will apply. The only sections that you can't remove are the ones on the left-hand side that are grayed out and have an asterisk next to them. Those are the standards that need to stay for all routing sheets, just for programming in the background because of different connections to different parts of the program. So those do need to stay. Anything else can be removed and customized. If you've made a lot of changes and people are freaking out a little and you want to go back to normal, you can just come in and click that Restore Default, and you'll be back to all of the selections being shown. This is helpful, especially if you are printing routing sheets out to a PDF or something of that nature, and there's sections that are printing that you don't use by category. By removing them, they will also not be shown in those printing situations. We always have these little notes here in each of the utilities. If there's something that you need to know about, take a look at those. It'll explain a few more things for you. I just went over them, but it does give you a little information here. So again, you can manage your routing sheet, changing the category, simply moving into another category. The financial section, as you know, maybe we don't use the e-file section, so we can remove that section out without any trouble. So if you need to do that, you can do that. So it's pretty simple utility, not hard to use, just want you to be aware that you have the options to make those changes. The next utility is the custom grid settings. We get a lot of questions about this. There are a lot of columns that are available. I'm still a little amazed when I go into some sites that I see that they're just using the standards, which is fine. That's absolutely fine, but you might find that there's information that you'd like to see at your fingertips, either at a My View situation or a search situation, and you have the ability to make those changes. We have two options here. You can, well, actually three. You can change it at the My View level, you can change it at the search level, or you can have it the same for both. These, again, are firm-wide settings. Just because you're changing the My View view, that affects everyone's My View. There are some small changes you can make at the user level when you're logged in to also make a few changes to your My View, but that's obviously at a user level. This is purely at a firm level here. So the first thing to keep in mind as when you select your columns and add them to the selected box on the right-hand side, the first 4 columns in the order will stay frozen. If you have additional columns after that that expand past the view and you need to use the scroll bar, the first 4 will stay and the data will roll underneath those. So you want to make sure that whatever you need to see all the time, maybe the client name and client number, those are sort of at the top, and you're keeping those frozen so that you're not missing that data as you're scrolling. There are a great deal of columns that you can add, as you see as I scroll down, so that you can make these selections. It's very easy to make the selection. If you want something, all you do is simply check the box. It will come over to the selection box. It will be at the bottom. You can simply click and drag that up to wherever it is you would like it to be in the order of the columns. Click the little checkbox, and that will take that off of the grid. When you make the changes, just be sure you're making them for the correct view. This is the My View. When I make the changes and move the order, I click Save for My View. It will save it just for that page. If I want it to be the same on the My View and the search, I can simply save it for both. Again, we always give you that restore back to a default. If you need to do that, if you got a little carried away and weren't sure what you were doing, you want to clear it back out, go back to that restore to default. Same situation, same columns available. You could switch over to the search if you're looking for, your reviewer role, or you're looking for something and you don't want to scroll on down. You just start typing. Maybe I want my report date in there. I can search for it and click report date. Again, it adds it to the bottom. Move it around wherever you need it, and you can customize what you see and in what order you see it as. Okay, very easy. Just click that save button and you are good to go. I'm going to move along quickly. Please post those questions if you have questions. Some of these are a little bit obvious and easy to use. You may just not have been aware of them. Some of them are going to be a little more complicated. I'll spend a little more time on those. But again, I'm just trying to touch all of these new little features that we have for those clients who maybe have been around for a while and didn't realize that these were available. So let's go back out to the list of utilities. The next one we're going to talk about is the custom fields. Managed custom fields is a utility that allows you to put custom fields that you can apply to your routing sheet to gather information that XCM may not already be gathering for you. I'm sorry, I do see a quick question. Can you choose different columns for different categories? On the routing sheet, if that's what we're referring to, no, the columns are specifically for the views, so it's not separated out by category. No, it's just simply, I'm sorry. I think we were talking about the custom grid. The custom grid is not separated out by category, because the grid is the grid. It's the My View or it's the search grid. So no, it can't be separated out by category, just by the view. But good question. So now if we go to manage custom fields, sorry about that, we'll jump back over there. Again, the custom fields, we allow you to add now up to 25 custom fields that you can add to your routing sheet. And these, again, if you're adding custom fields to the routing sheet, they're added to all routing sheet. You can't break it out by category. They will show on every routing sheet. But if the field isn't applicable to a specific category, you just don't have to use it. Or you could, if all of the custom fields apply to maybe your tax department and none of them apply to any of the others, you could turn off the custom field. But you can only turn off the custom field if you're not going to have any custom fields that kind of cross different categories. So just keep that in mind. So originally, the custom fields had two options, text and date. So you had a text field, which was just free form, so people could put an answer in. And this seemed to cause a little bit of a problem because if, if it was a yes or no question, some people might have put yes, some people might have put Y. Or if it was a date field that you wanted in there and some people abbreviated and some people spelled it out, it just kind of made the data sort of messy. So we've given the ability to now have what we call single select. So this can be applied to new custom fields that are added. You can't switch over from text to single select because there's already data out there. So if you had free form text before, changing it over to single select wouldn't be a clean switch. If you wanted to change it, you'd have to turn off the old custom field, create a new custom field, make it a single select, and move forward with it. Single select, and what that does is you can see I have one here, monthly billing, and I have it set at the single select category. What that does is it gives me a little cogwheel over here where I can set those options that will be available in that custom field on the routing sheet. So when I click on the monthly billing in the routing sheet, it will give me these four monthly choices that I can select and put into that field on the routing sheet. So I can add additional months if I want to do that. And I can hit apply. And once I log out and log back in again, that new field will be added to the drop down on the routing sheet. So again, text is free form, date is the date, gives you the calendar option, and then the single select is an area where you can put the options of what you want people to choose from. Yes, no, on, off, a list of selections that they can choose from, just like the months I was showing you. The display column is fairly obvious. If you want it to display on the routing sheet, turn it on. If you don't want it to display, turn it off. This is currently on. This is currently off. On. If maybe you're running a campaign and you want to get some data for a year across a group of tasks and you want to turn that on, turn it on, gather the data, run a report, and you will be able to have that data. And if you don't want it to continue going forward, turn it off and it won't display anymore. These custom fields are going to be shown fairly at the top. Someone was asking, where do they show? It'll be on the routing sheet. I believe it's the third section down. So it's just under the task information. And there is a specific section called custom fields, and it will show. So pretty much towards the first third or so of the routing sheet. They're in their own section called custom fields. The information in those fields, not the field itself, but if you want the data that is put in those custom fields to roll over, whether it's auto rollover, manual rollover, or during the recurrence pattern, if you want that the data within the field to roll over, click that box and it will roll that information over. So if it's something that continues year to year to year, you know, and you want that information to roll over, turn that on. If you don't, the box will roll over, but it will be cleared out for the new year. So just kind of keep that in mind. Once you make changes, there is the save button at the very bottom. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes our save buttons are a little bit higher, or apply changes and things like that. This save button is at the end, although because I touched a few things here, if I try to get out of this utility, it's going to say, hey, you made some changes. Are you sure you want to get out without saving? But it's very easy to, you know, say cancel and go down and hit that save button. I'm not going to save any of my changes. I'm just going to go ahead and leave this page. The next section I'd like to talk about is the Manage Workflow Statuses. As you can see, I'm just working through these setup utilities here. Manage Workflow Statuses allows you to add or turn on or add statuses based on the category. So again, this one is category driven for those of you, you know, are asking those questions. If you select the category, what you add here will only be applied to that category, tasks in that category. So you can see if I click on tax, I see a list here of very many tax statuses that are available for me to use during my workflow process. I can run a report of my statuses that I have turned on and the information that's on this grid. This grid's a little scrolly, so if you wanted to have a whole list right in front of you, you can print that report out, or you could jump over to the Manage Workflow utility from here. The order by section, this is purely how you're viewing it in this screen. So if you, when I show you how when you set up steps, you can set them up by workflow, and you can say, you know, this step or this status has to do with the beginning of the workflow. This one has to do with e-filing. This one has to do with different stages of the task. If you wanted to see your list like that by workflow, because that's how you're applying them, if you switch over to workflow, you can see it breaks up those statuses. It doesn't change anything anywhere else. It's just how you're viewing those statuses. I find it a little difficult this way because inherently we're an alphabetical kind of group. So I like to view it in the alphabetical status. So it doesn't matter to me where it sort of applies, you know, when it's going to happen, when that status could happen. I just want to be able to find it alphabetically. Keeps me up on my alphabetical skills there. So just to talk about the grid that we're looking at here, just to understand what we're looking at. So the first column obviously is the name of the status. The email column allows you to turn on an email notification for a particular status. And what that means is you have an active status and you have email turned on. Anytime that status is moved to and assigned to someone, they will get an email letting them know they've got something in that status that they're responsible for. This is firm-wide. You can't set the email to only go to the staff and not the partners, or just to the admin and not the staff. It is email on no matter what. Now, if the status only applies to people who are in the admin department, they're the only ones the task is going to get assigned to. So they're obviously the only ones that are going to get that email. So again, it's a nice reminder. It can be something that can be turned on maybe during the the slower times when things move a little bit less and people aren't in XCM, 24/7. You want to turn that on for a while, and just to give people a reminder to go in and check on their work, you can do that. You can turn it off. It's that simple. On or off, no real major effect except for the fact that they will get the email or they won't get the email. Now, XCM has preloaded a lot of these statuses for you based on just kind of general, accounting practice. So under the type, you can see DS here means it's a default status. Anything that says FS is something that was created by someone who has the rights in your firm. We have a quick question. How do you set this up so that email will be sent to those admin even though they are a general user? Well, again, you can't apply it to an admin, but if the status is purely admin related, so if the status is please assemble, okay, I'm just making up the name, and only the admin people get that, and if you move the status to please assemble and you assign it to Mary Smith, she will get the email. Now, if you're just assigning it to a box, no one will get the email. So if it's just going into a pool, the email won't work. But if you are divvying up the work between different admin and you're assigning it to a specific, the only way the email works is if you assign it to a specific person using that status. So I hope that clears that up. And it says, if you map the status, does the email only go to the staffing role? So no. So in this case, a lot of times we really lean on that role. The email will go to the person in that role. So again, if the status is being moved to preparation and the preparer is in that role and the name in that role is Mary Smith, it's getting moved to prep. And she is the staff person in the preparer role, and she is the one it's getting moved to. She is the one that will get the email. Okay, so it's all about if the staffing role is populated with a user, that user is the person that gets the email. So I hope that's clear for everybody. Okay, so we also have the ability to create firm-specific statuses, which I can show you how to do that. This column simply lets you know if that status is assigned. And what that means is if there is a yes in this column, when someone moves a task to a specific status that has yes in the column, it is required that you assign it to someone. It won't let you leave the assignment blank. So it doesn't matter who you assign it to, it does have to be assigned to an active user. And then this column tells you whether you have that workflow status mapped. And this is very important if you want to make a change to it, if you want to delete it, if you forgot to make it assigned to and you want to. If it is mapped, you're going to need to unmap everything before you can make any changes. So this will indicate to you how hard or easy it's going to be to make changes as to whether it's mapped or not. Or if it's not mapped and you want to map it, you'll know just by looking here. Okay? So if you want to delete a status, meaning get rid of it altogether, it absolutely has to not be used. And the only way to do that is to be able to click on, I'm going to find an FSS here. So if this status right here that I just highlighted basically in yellow, when I clicked on it, you can see the information popped up here. If it's not being used, this delete button should be available for me to delete it. So if I can click on it, I can delete it. If I cannot click on it, it means even if it's turned off, somehow it's still being used and I can't delete it. So I have to do a search by turning that status back on, do a search, figure out what's sitting in that status, get it out of there before I can delete it, okay? So it won't let you delete something that's being used. Equally, it won't let you change your mind and assign this. So if you have created a status and forgotten to require that it be assigned to an individual and you start using that status or you map it, it's very difficult to go back and click this box. I got lucky here. I picked a status that nobody's done anything with. It's not mapped. Nobody's using it. I can change my mind and I can say, oh no, I really want it to be assigned to someone. If you don't make that selection when you create a firm specific status, it's very difficult to go back. Not very difficult. It's just a pain to go back and make that change. You have to take everything out of the status. You have to unmap the status, and then you can come in, click that button, and then you have to go back and move everything back into the status, and you have to remap that status. You cannot delete default statuses. You can turn them off, but you can't delete them from this list. They're just going to stay here. They're default statuses that were, populated by XCM, and they do stay there. So you can't delete default statuses. Again, you can turn them off. Turning a status on and off is simply by a click of a button. If I turn that status on, I log out, log back in, it is now available anywhere where I can select a status. If I don't want it to be available anymore, especially if I'm going to try to make changes and I don't want people moving things to it, I can simply unclick it. Nobody can move to that status now, and nobody can search for that status. So you can turn it on, turn it off. It's more of a visibility thing. If I want to create my own status, so if I reset this screen here, you can see I have nothing here. I can simply put in the name of a status. Grouping accounts. Maybe this is something you want things to move to this status because you want to start grouping accounts. I don't even know what that means, but we'll use that. Where does it apply in the workflow? Again, this is only applicable if you're viewing this screen by workflow, so you can change it, you cannot change it, it's entirely up to you. If it's, something that happens, you don't really know when it happens, it's just a status that needs to be used, choose miscellaneous. You can leave it at start as long as you don't ever want to go back and, view this screen by workflow only. Here's the key again. If you want this status to always have to be assigned to a individual role or a person, you must check this off now to make it your life easier later. Okay? So just think about assigned, move to whom required, meaning when I move to this status, it has to be assigned to someone. Okay? That's very important. We get this question all the time. Once you do that, you can simply hit add. It will add alphabetically in the list. I know my alphabet should be right about here. So right now, it's great. I can turn it on. People can start using it. If I just did this and I made a spelling error, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off. I want to make a change because nobody's touched it. I can come up here and I can go, oh, that's not really what I meant. I meant group accounting. Group accounts. That's what I really meant and what I didn't really mean to assign it. I can make changes very easily until someone starts using it. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you make a change like I just did and I didn't hit the save, if I want it to update, I have to hit update. So again, you add it, you update, you delete, and then you reset. Okay, so again, very easy. Just think about what we're doing. I find that, Americans, I've decided we like to just kind of take a quick peek and think we know what everything's going on. Read the steps, read the words, understand what you're doing. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble if you take the time to really think about, what you're applying here. So that is creating your own firm specific statuses, turning them on and off. Again, it's by category. So these are my tax. If I go down and I click on other, I can see there are a lot less options turned on here in my other category. Maybe I don't use that very often, but just keep in mind, like things like e-filing, just because you turned it on in one spot, if you want it for different tax categories, you need to turn it on to be able to search for those search for those statuses in the different categories, if you will. Okay. You guys are asking good questions. I appreciate that you're doing it as we go along, so that's great, and hopefully I'm not going too fast. I know there's just a lot to cover, so I just want to make sure we're getting that all in. Manage task types is our next This is the big one. Everyone sees this and goes, oh, auto rollover. I think that's the only thing people see when they go into this is how many times, and I wish I could see a show of hands, how many times has someone in your firm done this incorrectly and turned auto rollover on for all your statuses and set them to daily? I know it is an error that people make, and it gives people a lot of heartburn, and sometimes you don't notice it for a little while, and it takes a bit of a cleanup. So we will talk about that. I will slowly go through the steps, and it will be recorded. So if you need to go back and look at it, you can go back and look at it. But what we want to talk about here is task type. So unlike statuses are where you're moving tasks throughout the system. Task types are types of work that you're doing for your clients, whether it's tax, financial, bookkeeping, CAS, whatever it is. Every firm is a little different. Every firm is in different areas, have different requirements, have different client base, and you want to be able to capture all the work you do, and you want to be doing it in XCM because that's the best way to track everything, especially where we've all been locked at home for 3 months. God forbid we'd have to do this by paper. We all would be pretty bald right now, I think, rather than gray. So again, XCM populates standard task types. This is broken out, can be broken out by category, but this view is really, you can see everything. So we go tax category, then we go financial category, then we go bookkeeping, and then we go other. So everything is populated here in one view. You don't have to switch from category to category. So it's easy to see everything right here. So as we work across, the tax code is a 5-digit code that you can choose. I know 5 digits doesn't seem like a lot, but it's supposed to be just sort of a little summary. When you hover over it in any of the views, it will give the full name of that tax type. So your name can be longer and give a little bit of a better understanding of what your tax code has to do with. The category, again, you'll select that category, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. The filing type. If this is what you want to select depending on what you do most of the time. If you e-file, if everything in that task type or 90% of the time you're going to e-file it, do that. It's going to fill in default filing method so you won't have to worry about it. So that you have that ability. You also can choose paper, which again is pretty obvious. When you close out a status or a deliverable and it's paper, it's very easy. You put in that date delivered and it closes it out and completes that deliverable. You can also choose none, and this is a new thing that we've added. None is not a new filing method, but if you use none, if there is no thing that you're sending out to the client or nothing that you need to track per se as a shipping type situation, if you choose the filing type of none, it basically skips over the shipping section. So you don't have to do anything major. You can just move it to completed, and when you move to complete, it will, and the filing method for all deliverables is none. It fills in all the information and completes the task out, so you don't have to go through filling out the shipping section. You just want to make sure if you're setting it at none, you really mean you're not tracking anything as far as, that's really good for like internal tasks. If you have a general, a quarterly password set, that you have to change. That's something, it doesn't require any type of filing, but you need to do it and you need to follow the steps and then you need to close it out. But so the none filing type is perfect for something like that. The delete, again, we won't let you delete anything that is being used. You can see this is all grayed out, but if you've got one in here that's sitting here and nobody's using it, this evaluation, you can see very slightly that this box is not grayed out. If I can click in it, I can delete it, which means nobody's using it. So if you do create a task type and you don't want to see it in the list and you don't want anyone turning it on by mistake and you don't want anyone to use it, you can delete it out. So you can click that delete button. This again will tell you whether it's a firm specific or a task specific. Sorry, if it's a standard task type, XCM loaded it, is responsible for it, and takes care of all the deliverables that go along with it. If it is firm specific, the firm created it, the firm loaded it, and is responsible for all the deliverables that go along with it. Auto rollover, we'll talk about that in a minute. dependent upon. Many of you might have gotten an email about this with all the due date changes that we just went through. We gave firms the option, if they were using this feature, that if they had something associated with one of our standard task types, that they were using the deliverables from that, we would go ahead and update that. And what it means is, if you have a task type, we'll say a 1040 NR. That's not a standard task type for us. I don't know why. It's just not. A lot of times they have different deliverables, and following all those deliverables of different states, it would probably be a little bit too hard for us to manage. It maybe come down the line. I don't know. We talked about putting foreign filer in as a standard. If it's something you want, anytime you want something like that, send it into enhancements at xcmsolutions.com. We'll see what the feasibility is. But the point is if, say you have a 1040 NR or you have a 1040 H, which is a housing, type form, but you know that everything about that form follows exactly what happens in the 1040 world, associate it, link it to right up here, make it dependent upon the standard 1040, so that when you create a 1040 NR task and you go into deliverables, you'll have all the standard deliverables that are available for all the different states with all the due dates. As long as everything follows the same thing, it's very easy to do that. Some people use it, some people don't. Generally, we don't update the due dates when they are associated, because we don't know if you're associating it with something that you've created on your own, if it always will follow, even if there's a change being made, which is why when we made all these COVID changes, we reached out and said, hey, you've got these things that are dependent upon. Do you want us to update them for you, or do you not? So some of you said, no, I don't want you to touch my stuff. Some said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So just to understand what that dependent upon really means. So if I want to set up a new task type, I can put in my 4-digit code. Maybe I'm going to put in PW, because I know that means, or maybe I'll put in, I'm going to say with PW. PW. It is an other category. See, as soon as I do that, it doesn't give me the ability to link it to anything, because it wants you to stay within that tax category, because that's where those deliverables live, is in the tax category. I don't need any kind of due dates to go along with this particular thing that I would want to link to. PW doesn't tell me much, but what it's going to say is firm password reset. This is something that I want tracked every year, or whatever the cadence is I want it to be tracked on. I don't have to deliver it to anybody. I don't have to file anything. So my filing method's going to be none. Once I put this in and I like what I've done, again, it makes it easier if you preview it first. If you're adding it and kind of goes along with something else, make sure your uppers and lowers are the way you want them and all of that information. So once I do that, I click save. I click add. This will add at the very bottom, and it will turn on. So now this task type is available for me, and someone can create tasks against this and do whatever they need to do, create deliverables if there needs to be a deliverable, and things of that nature. Auto rollover. Get ready. Get your pencil ready. Get ready. To turn on auto rollover for a newly created task type, I'm going to turn it on for password reset here. Click the box one time above the grid, right here. Click the box again. It turns everything off. Scroll to the task type that you would like to turn auto rollover on for. Click the box. Highlight it. Go to the top. You can see it's firm password reset. Click auto rollover. Take your hand. Didn't I check it off? I apologize. Check it off. Click auto rollover. Take your hand off your mouse. You're going to get a box. You make your selections. This is what I'm talking about. It defaults to daily. I don't know why. We've had many people say, please don't let it default to daily. But if we default to annual, people won't want that. If we default to quarterly, they won't want that. Just know, make your selection here. I want this to happen quarterly in the situation of this particular task type. Make any other selections here you want to happen during the auto rollover and click apply. Take your hand off the mouse. Everything refreshes, all your task types get turned back on the way they're supposed to, and now I have auto rollover set for that task type. If you ever come into this utility and all of these are turned on and everything has auto rollover turned on, somebody made a mistake. So take a breath, take a look, see what happens. If you need to turn it off, simply go in, click on edit for whatever task type, turn off auto rollover. Super easy to turn it off. Not so much to turn it on, super easy to turn it off. Someone has a question. Was told we can add up to 20 new categories. This has to be done with support only. That is correct. If you choose and you want to add, this is a very new feature, it just came out. If you want to add additional categories, you can contact your consultant and they will help you with that process. Someone is asking again, how do you use auto rollover recurring versus recurring tasks? So that's a very big conversation. There is a training on the Help Center, auto versus recurring tasks. I suggest you watch that video. It really explains the whole process. It's really too much for me to go into this training. Auto rollover, I would simply say auto rollover is generally used for for annual type tasks, and recurring tasks are things that you want to happen at a more frequent cadence. You want them to push out to someone's My View page, and you want the ability to control when those tasks show up in your site. So that's a very quick way of explaining it, but there is documentation in the Help Center to really dig deep into which you should use and which you should not. Okay, great questions, everybody. I love it when people ask questions. The next utility we're going to go into is manage custom sign-offs. Sorry, my internet tends to get a little pokey in the afternoon. I think all my neighbors are doing their thing. So manage custom sign-offs. Manage custom sign-offs allows you to apply sign-offs to task types. Again, this is broken up by category, so choose your category. Choose your task type that you want to add a sign-off to. Put it in the selection box. If you have multiple task types that have the same group of sign-offs, if you put them all over in the bucket and you click on one of them, you can create sign-offs in bulk to apply to all of the task types that are sitting in this category. If you start looking back and forth and you're like, oh no, this one has it, this one doesn't, this one has it, this one doesn't, and you have them all sitting over here, and then you start making changes, you are apt to make changes for all those task types, so please be very careful. Whatever is in this box is going to get updated based on what you tell the system to do. Move the task type over. If you want to remove a sign-off, very easy. Click on it, pull it out of the box, hit save and update. What's going to happen is below here, it's going to remove it from the grouping of sign-offs I have. I can save update here, the grid. It will have, if I hit update, it means it'll be every task going forward. If I need it to apply to all my active tasks that are out there, I can hit apply to all active tasks, and everything will, all those new sign-offs or deletions will get applied out to active tasks. If the sign-off I deleted was already signed off in a particular task, it will not delete it. It will keep it there. However, when the task rolls over, that sign-off will get deleted going forward, but it won't delete anything that was already previously signed off on. Okay? If I want to add a new sign-off, if it's not in the list here, I can add something. Name it whatever you want. add it to the pick list. Once I add it to the pick list, I can move it over to ones I want to use. If I want it in a particular order, I can move it up, put it in the order that I want it, move it down, whatever I want to do, wherever I want it to land. Hit save for this section, which says these are the ones I want, puts them down below for me. Again, I can just make an update and apply to active tasks. If I want to add some kind of a warning or when that sign off should happen and who should sign off on it, I can do that now. Click on the new sign off. Do I need a sign off? Blank means there's no reminder, there's nothing going on. Required means this sign off absolutely has to be done when moving out of the status prompt that I select. It won't let you move unless the sign off is done. Warning means it'll just give me a reminder when I'm moving out of that status prompt. It'll say, hey, don't forget you have a sign off, but it won't stop you from moving it, okay? So you can put in a warning. What is the prompt? Maybe it's coming out of to be shipped. Who's responsible for it? I can choose my responsible role. I can leave it blank if there's no role particularly responsible. And I can update. Again, if I just update, it's for all tasks created going forward. If I click apply to all active tasks, it will tell me that it has done that and there were 2 tasks that were affected by that change. So it's a very easy utility if you stop and think about it. Choose your task type, move it to the selection box. Once you have it, view what might already be there by clicking on it. If I want to make a change, I make my selections in the middle, then I apply them out at the bottom. Okay? Moving into the checklist section, and I'm going to run a little short here, so I might go a little quick, and I apologize for that. There's so much to cover in this area. Manage custom checklist items, same concept as sign-offs. Choose my task type. Choose my checklists from a list that could be pre-populated or create my own. The thing with creating it, you want to give it a name. Let me see if I can find one here that kind of gives you an explanation. So if I say engagement letter, see it says the name of the checklist item is engagement letter, but in the checklist section it's going to say to me, hey, has the engagement letter been signed by the client? That's the checklist item. That's what I want to make sure happened. So I can give it a name and I can give a description about it if the name doesn't give me enough understanding. Okay. If I choose something from my pick list and I move it over, if I want it in a certain spot, again, I move it up and down wherever I want that checklist to land. Once I'm happy with it, I save and update and it moves it down below. Here's my call the client. If I didn't move it up where I wanted it, I can simply move it up. Hit that save and update again, it'll put it in the right spot. If I need to associate it with a status, when do I want someone to call the CAS client? You know, again, pick a status that should be happening in the to be shipped status. Who's responsible for that? I think I want my admin responsible for that. Click update. This will again affect tasks that are created for the 1040 task type going forward. Fairly new feature for those of you who lived in the world of updating your checklist items and having to hit the default button in every single task. You no longer have to do that. Simply click on apply to all active tasks and it will push it out. And again, everything will be updated. If you removed a checklist and the checklist was already done, it won't remove it, but it will upon rollover so you don't lose any data that may have been done already. If you need to change the information that has to do with a checklist item, you can't change the name unless you delete it and start over. So if you need to do that, you'll have to, move it back to the pick list, delete it, and then create a new one if you need to rename it or put some sort of a better description or something like that, okay? If you update all active tasks and you have already signed off on some, does it wipe out that information? So no, as I mentioned, if you change sign-offs, you already said thanks for clarifying, so I already answered your question. Well, that's great. Sorry, let me see if I got any new questions here in this section. Again, so anytime you change a sign-off or change a checklist item and you apply it out to all active tasks, if that item was there and signed off or there and completed as it relates to checklist items, it will not delete what was already there. It will leave it for this situation. When the task rolls over, it will update it at that point. So anything at active, if it's signed off already or completed already as a checklist item, it will not remove that data. So you won't lose any history. Great question. Manage workflow mapping is our last utility here. Again, you can see these all are laid out the same. We try to make it easy. It's by task type. This report is very handy if you're trying to find where something is mapped, like if you want to delete a status like we talked about before, you can run a report based on category to see where your statuses are mapped so that you'll be able to, delete them if you need to, the mapping so that you can update those statuses. But again, you choose a selection, click on it, it will show you your mapping. Mapping, you just want to think logically. It's a to from situation. No info in to preparation, then preparation to what's the next step to the next step. It's all just about, what makes sense moving from one status to the next. If you add a new step in here, it's going to add at the bottom. So say I add info in awaiting prep and I want that to go from there to preparation. Well, I say that's going to go, and I'm going to put that with my tax staff. This may not make perfect sense, but if I add that, save and update, see it comes to the bottom, I then can move that step up to where I need it to be, working my way up the chain, okay? Simply moving it up. In the order to which I want it. Sometimes it'll bump up against something because it doesn't understand what you're trying to do, like a to be shipped to be shipped situation. It might not let you move past the to be shipped. So sometimes you have to delete a step and then add the step back in. So that's a little bit of a kind of a glitch. Not a glitch, but it's just so it doesn't have too many steps that have the same to and from situation. If you want to delete a step, simply click on it, click delete. It'll delete it right out of the workflow status. And the workflow mapping, once you get out of it, it updates right away. If someone has passed the step that you deleted, it's not a big deal. They'll just move on to the next step. Or if they haven't gotten to one that you deleted, when they go to move, the one that would have been there is replaced by the new one. So it happens very quickly. Locking a workflow step, I would use this cautiously. If you lock a step, when someone tries to move out of that step, if they are not going specifically to the next place that you have said it should go, it's not going to let them move it. That could cause some aggravation. So just make sure that any step you're locking absolutely has no other options but the one you're sending it to. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes and I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer. But those are those advanced utilities that we get a lot of questions on. I know that it's a lot of information, but I do want to point out for you, those of you that are still online, if you go to the Help Center, we keep everything that I just said to you is available in a guide. Okay, so go to Guides and Documentation, Release Notes, Practice Guides, and go to our practice guides. There is a practice guide for each one of these utilities. It's laid out, examples, very easy. Read through it. If you still have questions, support@xcmsolutions.com. We are always here to help. Ask a specific question. What is it you're trying to do? Where are you having a struggle? Send a screenshot. We love those. And we will either send you a practice guide if you didn't mention that you already looked at the practice guide, or we can clarify something in the practice guide. You can also, if we need to, we can reach out to you. Again, remember, this training is recorded and it will be sent out to you. You should receive it automatically around this time tomorrow in your email address that you use to register for this training. So I hope this was helpful. I know it's a lot of data, but feel free to go back to the recording to get any more information that you may need to kind of slow it down and pay a little more attention to. So I thank you. I hope everyone is safe and healthy, social distancing and doing all those fun things that are our new norm.